heard of that huge city in about 20 miles south of Bloomington. No, it's a small town, Bedford, Indiana. I grew up in an actually little community called Fayetteville. Grew up in a farm, dead end road. So we could see no houses. We could just see pastures and cows and a barn and ponds and things like that. It was 124 acres. So yeah, we grew up farming and did that all, until I left home. Went to IU. I got a degree there. It's funny, in Bedford, people worship two men in Bedford. They worship Bobby Knight and they worshiped Jesus sometimes, and typically in that order. So it was a huge basketball community, and my high school was very competitive on the state level, and both girls and boys basketball. But again, I got a degree at IU. Thought I wanted to teach, and stayed on for another semester or two. Probably because I didn't want to leave IU. I love Bloomington still to this day, but got a teaching certificate, and then that's what brought me to Central Indiana. I got assigned to Avon High School. This would have been 95-ish, and did a short student teaching stint there, and stayed. And in the meantime, met what would become my wife, and have made a life here in Indianapolis since that time. So after I graduated, though, I went back and got an MBA. Started to get interested in finance, operational type stuff. Had a couple of jobs doing some of that. And then we bought our first home in 1997 in Sobro. Sobro was just recently coined that. It's a really, depending on who you talk to, Sobro is a very loosely defined area. I've heard people going all the way down to 38th Street calling it Sobro. But we lived off 49th and Primrose, and bought that house in 97, sold it in 99, I think it was, or 2000, and moved out to the suburbs. And when I left, my brother-in-law, Scott Hallberg, he lived a block away from us. And I said, I love this area. We owned this house like 2 years. I made decent money on it. How about we start investing? And he was all behind that. He'd wanted to do that as well. So we started investing back in 2000, bought our first rental property in 2000 on 52nd Street, still own it today. The plan was to buy one a year. We started buying one a month. So we built a pretty good portfolio of homes. Around 2002, I think it was, we started buying and selling very actively. So we were attending every Marion County Sheriff's sale, and eventually we were able to quit our jobs because we were able to buy and sell and quit our jobs. All in the meantime, we were still trying to manage like 50 doors of our own, and that became problematic. So, because it's hard when you're trying to attend a sheriff's sale and you got rents to collect or a lease to sign or a move-in to happen or a property to show to a prospective tenant. You got to look at your time and where you value that. So we started looking to hire a property manager back then because we just said, hey, look, our time is more valuable doing the buying and selling than it is doing the day-to-day management. And it quickly became evident there weren't very many property managers back then. There were just 3 or 4, and started interviewing them. Never forget a story I could tell is that we talked to one company. I don't think they're in business anymore, but I asked them to send me their management agreement. About a week later, I got an envelope in the mail with the management agreement. It was clearly Xerox and someone used a typewriter to type up that management agreement. And they wrote in the margins like amendments and updates and with a pen. And so I'm like, wow, this industry lacks some professionalism. And so in 2007, we formed a third-party property management company. We managed our doors only at that time, and then started quickly building and scaling and adding some really good systems, adding a lot of people. And we sit again today around, we're over 1,200 units, got like 36 staff, and plan to keep growing. So that's my story. Started on a farm, ended up managing properties. It wasn't necessarily intentional. I didn't go to school to say I want to be a property manager. I don't think anybody does, but it just kind of worked into that and kind of hit it at the right time, and have been able to scale up pretty quickly.
So let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Why would somebody want to hire a property manager? I know you mentioned something about time, but is there anything else to why somebody would want to hire a company like you guys?
Well, I mean, it's the main thing is logistics. right? Because 75% of our clients don't call Indiana home. I would guess 50% of them have never been to Indiana. So you can imagine managing a home that is in your same city is difficult at times. It can become a big time suck for people. Managing 2,000 miles away or 500 miles away or whatever it is becomes a big, big challenge. So the boots on the ground, something that we offer, expertise in, specific markets and where rents are trending and things like that. There's a lot of value that a property manager can provide. So logistics is number one reason, but our biggest clients, interestingly enough, live in the city. So the people, the biggest portfolios that we manage, we don't manage huge portfolios, but some of our biggest clients do live here, and it comes down to time. It's like, I would rather invest my time adding more properties to my portfolio than calling an HVAC company to fix an air conditioner or to do a showing or to sign a lease or to whatever. And that's the tipping point. When the value of your time becomes more than the cost of the service, that's when people say, I'm going to hire a property manager. I don't have time. We get a lot of self-managers that have converted into our company because of that reason, the time and the hassle. Had someone come through our system just a couple of days ago saying, I'm terrible at this. My tenants never pay me rent on time. I need help, all in caps. And it's like, that's the problems we can solve for people because we do this every day. We have systems in place to help, our investors maximize their return. So that's why people hire logistics, number one, and then time, number two, because it's hard to be a landlord. There's a lot of intricacies around it. And it's not just putting an ad out and moving someone in. People do that. I get it. And there's a reason why people self-manage. But at the end of the day, when things go wrong, and they will go wrong if you do this long enough, you're just not going to always, get that perfect tenant who stays 10 years and keeps your property in great condition. There's going to be some problems. And that's when property managers become very valuable because they have the resources and the skill to react and make the right decisions.
Yeah. I had rental property years ago, and I was a terrible property manager. Just like that email you said you got or text, that was me. I mean, when I listened to it, it's like that's where I was at. And the only time I made money is when I hired a property manager.
Yeah. Because
they knew what to put the rents at. They collected the rents. I mean, it was the only time I made money. And so right. I would never own a rental property without having a property manager. I'm sure there's people who can do well, but I think it's kind of like selling a home on your own. You don't really know what the value is. There's so many things you don't know that property manager knows, that you're just so much. Yes, it costs a little bit of money, but it may actually make you money. That's what I found. It made me money. It was better for me. Is that something? Well, obviously you see that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the value prop we hope that people understand is that, yes, some people can do fine. I think 65 to 70% of landlords self-manage still across the country. Or that's a pretty big statistic. And some people have an experience and they do well and they do it again, they do well. And then sometimes things don't go right and they decide to turn it over. Generally speaking, a property manager should be able to rent your home faster than you can because we have inputs into systems that can market your home much more effectively. We have ways to show property that you're not going to be able to utilize. And then we can turn properties usually a lot more quickly because we have vendors at the ready. Vacancy is an extraordinarily expensive part of being a landlord. It'll ultimately determine your success or failure as a landlord is that vacancy. So as much as you can minimize that vacancy, the higher your return is going to be. Because if you have no rent and you have all these expenses coming in, whether to paint the property, utilities, lawn care, whatever, and just the idea of the property being vacant and exposed, there's exposure there. We know that, particularly in some of the areas of our cities where break-ins can happen. People know when homes are vacant and they can go in and do it. So you want to really make that window as small as possible to get the revenue started again. That's the key. And it's not just putting a body in the property. It is putting someone who is vetted very well using tools that most people don't have access to, again, to make sure that tenant has the highest chance of success. So you don't have to evict them and go through all that again.
Yeah, which is a big pain.
Yeah.
You have to evict. It can't be fun.
No.
So I find it interesting because a vacant property, we've had plenty of real estate agents on our show where they've talked about the fact that they had a home that they were getting ready to close on. They go for final inspection and somebody broke in and took all the copper, out of the house, meaning they ripped the walls apart to get to the copper. Yeah. I mean, just disasters that can happen with a home that's sitting empty. So it is important that you get it full immediately or as quickly as possible.
Yeah, there's a lot of horror stories out there. We experience it with the number of homes that we manage, as you can imagine. We have to deal with that. And people are sophisticated now. They don't go in necessarily and take stuff that they can easily carry out. They're taking water heaters. They're taking full sets of appliances. They come prepared. These aren't your, hey, I'm walking down the street, 2 kids break in and pull a whatever out. These are sophisticated people, and they run in and they can take big systems out of properties, very expensive systems out of properties very quickly. And yeah, vacancy is not a good thing.
So I got a question. So do people normally contact you if they're like, hey, I think I might want to rent my house out and then buy another one? Or do they usually contact you once they have already been renting and have all the issues?
Both. We are getting, we started our business in 2007, and that's an interesting year. You guys have been doing this a bit, which, by the way, you guys are amazing. The sheer amount of number of podcasts that you do is remarkable. I mean, it's like, this is not an easy thing to do and get produced and all that stuff, because we do it, not the frequency you do, but you guys do a ton of volume, and I think you need to be applauded for that. But so yeah, we get all kinds of personas that hit us. But anyway, back in 2007 when we started, that's the housing collapse, 2007, 2008, morphed into that. And we started our business on the slogan, can't sell it, let us rent it. That's still on some of our cars today, our company cars. And frankly, those aren't great clients. They're clients that are a little desperate in some cases, because it's like, I've had my property on the market for 6 months. I've got one showing in the last 3 weeks, and I can't afford to pay this mortgage anymore. Those are difficult clients because they're not really going into it with a business mentality. And you have to treat this as a small business. It's a business that has a customer being your tenant. It has a business that has expenses. You're going to have to spend money on this. And it's a business that obviously has revenues through rents. So yeah, we get all kinds of personas coming into our system. We call them, frustrated landlords. It could be that they're with a different management company. We sign those up every week. People that just aren't happy with their management company, and they come to us. And more, as you can imagine, we're getting people that say, this is an interesting part of the market we're in, I think, right now, is we have 2 people that I would call that convert primary residences into rentals, but they have very different thoughts about it. There's one person who says, I can't sell my home. It's been on the market, like I'm in 6 months, can't sell it. I want to rent it. And we could help with that. The other person is saying, I'm at 2 3/4 interest rate on this property. I just bought a home. I'm debating on whether or not I should just rent it because this is really cheap money. I've run some numbers. I know what rents are, and I feel like I can rent this and do well. And that's a very different mindset. It's someone intentionally going into being a landlord versus someone that's like, help me, right? like I'm about ready to hit foreclosure and I need help. So yeah, we're getting both of those personas. I talked to a guy last week that was like that. He's like, my interest rate is so good. It just kind of makes sense for me to keep this. I know I may not be able to sell this thing as quickly as I could have a year ago. So I may just keep it for a year or two, see what the market does, and be a landlord for a while. But yeah, then we get the people that are, hey, I've been doing this for 2 years. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm terrible at it. So it's all kinds of people that reach out to us. And for us, it's so important to understand the story, to really be extraordinarily curious and to really understand their motivation in all this, because they come into it very intentionally. Like, another good persona of ours is, hey, I own 20 homes in 4 different markets. I love Indianapolis. I want to invest there. That learning curve is a lot different, right? Because they've been through it all. They understand how being a landlord works, how there's a lot of successes. There's some setbacks too. those clients are more primed to come in and being a landlord. So to answer your question, it's all kinds of people that hit us now, and we're very cognizant of what's going on in the market. We understand where people are in certain circumstances, and try to help a number of different people and a number of different challenges.
And if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, they want to rent their property or want to talk to you about doing that, or maybe they're looking to invest in a rental property, what's the best way to get a hold of you and your team?
Well, our website is really, really active. We get a tremendous amount of volume on our website. A lot of just people that come to our site for investment knowledge. We blog every week for the most part. We do a podcast now. It's just full of just free landlord resources, ebooks, whatever. But it's just threaltyinc.com, just think of the Realty Inc., but take out the E, threaltyinc.com. Another way to find is Indy's Best Rentals. It's the same. It'll take you to the same place. That's sometimes easier for people to remember, indysbestrentals.com. And then they can call us as well. It's 317-255-7767. We have an option. If you're looking for our services, press an option. You're going to get somebody to talk to and see if we can help them.
And to get a hold of Ian or I, go to hardworkingmortgageguys.com. That's hardworkingmortgageguys.com, or you can give us a call at 317. I can't remember the number, Ian. 317. I'm in 672-1938. 317-672-1938. I do that about half the time. It's terrible. I got like 15 numbers, and sometimes it's like, okay, which number am I supposed to be giving today?
I like the tag team approach there with the phone number. It was good.
Yeah.
All right, Jeremy.
All the help I can get. Ian knows it.
Yep, he needs quite a bit. Alzheimer's is setting in. All right, but let's get to know you a little bit more. So when you're not working, what are you doing for fun?
Well, my wife and I think you could call us empty nesters now. Raised two kids. One is a resident of Knoxville, Tennessee. Talked about IU. He was born into the environment. Smart kid, good GPA, good SATs. He applied to one school. You can imagine what that school was. So he graduated from IU last fall last May, and has moved to Knoxville, and he's made a life down there. So we're getting to know Knoxville, loving the Smoky Mountains, and spending some time down there with him. My daughter is a sophomore at Columbia College in Chicago. She fell in love with film, and so that's one of the top film schools in the country. And so she's there. And so it's my wife and our two dogs, and we're learning to live differently than we have. It's sometimes it's awesome, but you miss your kids, right? I mean, they're such a big part of your life, and they're gone, but we still make them a big part of our life. But my wife and I are very active. We love the Peloton. We got a Peloton a couple of years ago. I've never been a big biker. My business partner Scott was still a competitive cyclist. He won the Little 5 at IU back in the day.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a big event, but I don't ride my bike out, and I live downtown. I don't ride my bike around there, but I love the Peloton. Like, I'm such good friends with those instructors, at least in my mind. And I spend a lot of time on the Peloton every morning. My wife's at 5:30. I usually take over about 6:30. But we love Peloton. We like taking walks with our dogs through downtown. We live in Heron Morton, so it's great walkability, and we walk our dogs all the way through there. And I love to read. I've always, my undergraduate degree was in journalism, minor in English, and I've always been a big literary fiction fan, so I read constantly. And I also read a lot of nonfiction stuff. I've gotten into that more and more, really about leadership, team building. I love marketing books, things like that. So I spend a lot of time every morning, every evening reading, because I'm just a curious person. And I love to learn and that sort of thing. So between those two things, it keeps us pretty busy, and we're pretty active people. And so that's what I enjoy doing in this stage of my life.
So I'm sure you have it, because I'm kind of the same way. I read a lot. So what books are you reading right now?
Gosh, I am reading, and I wish I should have written this down. It's the book. It's called The Good Life is what it's called. So that's a book. That's a nonfiction book I'm actually reading now. And it really interesting. People should look it up. It's a tremendous book. It's based on the Harvard study, that's been going on for over 80 years about what makes people happy. Okay. It's a very interesting book. It's no surprise. I mean, we've known this forever. It's just these guys put it in some really good context. It's just relationships. Are the quality of our relationships make us happy? It's not money necessarily. It's not, what we own. It's typically the value of our relationships. So I'm reading that book now. I love it. And also as a team, we're reading Atomic Habits in our group here. So our leadership team always has a book that we're trying to read through. But Atomic Habits is I don't know if you guys know about it, but it's super good. It's super helpful. Just about developing really solid habits, and the culmination of those habits, can really make a profound change in your life. But yeah, those are the two. I'm actually reading 2 nonfiction books, which is kind of unusual for me. But because I love me a good fiction book. I just love the literary fiction genre and spend a lot of time on that.
I'm the same way. I have to force myself sometimes to read the business books because I like the fiction so much. It's so much more fun sometimes to read.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because at night, typically I love fiction because it puts my mind at ease. You're going 1,000 miles an hour at the end of the day. And so at night, my wife and I have a routine. We lay in bed and we read a fiction, but it just kind of puts our mind, we can, fall asleep to it. But in the mornings, I'm not perfect at this, but I try to block out like 20 to 25 minutes to read a nonfiction book, to get myself better, or get our company better, or whatever it is. But it's a discipline. For me, it's I've not always read nonfiction like I have fiction. So it's just different. It's a different mindset to get into.
So have you read or have heard of the 5 a.m. Club?
Yeah, I'm not a part of the 5 a.m. I'm a 5:30 club. So my wife and I get up at 5:30 every morning. I like to get up and do hard things in the morning. Like I sit down and I'll think about what I want to do the next morning at night and try to get that hard work done early. It makes the rest of your day a lot easier. So I spend time when she's on the Peloton, like I mentioned, kind of sitting down and doing some of the harder work, whether it's planning or a meeting or, getting through some to-dos or whatever it is. I like to get that stuff done and then avoid email for a while because it can get, your emails, you guys know, your inbox can get crazy and you become a slave to it. And so I like to really work on that hard stuff and, get that out of the way so I can focus on the reactionary stuff during the day, which in our industry, it's always happening. We're always reactionary because things happen every single day here that we have to react to.
And it's critical that you work on that. You have some quiet time to do the other things.
Right.
But what would you say your superpower or superpowers are?
Well, I can fly. No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. Another one.
Yeah. I would say
that makes 3 of us.
Yeah. Superpower. Yeah. Interesting question. I would say probably just, I'm always curious. I stay curious. I've been accused of never being satisfied. Like, you reach, because back when we first started this, I remember thinking if we could get to 300 doors under management, we would be the biggest management company maybe in the country. Okay. I think the biggest management company now in the country has over 40,000 doors. I mean, it's just changed fundamentally. But then we hit 300, then we hit 400, then we hit 500, then we hit 1,000. And we hit 1,000, we kind of celebrated that internally. We had shirts made because that's a big deal to hit 4 figures in management. There's not many companies. I think it puts us in the top 5% in the country as like number of doors managed, single family anyway. And now we want to get to 2,000, right? That's our goal at the end of 2026 is to get to 2,000. So it's always staying curious, never thinking you've made it, never thinking you've learned everything, because there's so much to learn. Our industry is evolving a ton. Tech is in our industry very heavily. So we have to stay on top of that tech. And just always iterating, changing how you do business, finding best practices, iterating those, iterating. Because I don't think you can ever say hey, there's nothing to do here. We're perfect. Every system works perfectly. We have all the right people, they're in all the right spots. It's just constantly looking at ways that we can serve our clients better. And that's typically through just, providing them better service, better systems, better communication, whatever it is. And I will never be one that says we figured it out because to me, that's impossible. It's about the journey to always try to get better and better and better. So I'm a curious person. I love to read. I love to learn. I love to talk to people, interview people. Maybe it's my journalism background, whatever. But I just think if you can always stay curious, you can always get better.
Now, you mentioned tech. What type of tech do you guys use? And then how does it benefit you guys?
Oh gosh, we use a lot of tech. It's one of the things that as property management industry, I wish our tech stack wasn't so tall because we have a lot of different tech we use. We have property management software. There's several different companies now that offer just basic software. It's really more of an accounting system. And you're kind of a database of, here's all your tenants, here's all your owners, here's all your properties and the amenities and all that good stuff. So we have a system we use. It's called Propertyware. We've used them since 2007. We're actually one of the initial customers of Propertyware. We know their owners or their former owners pretty well. But we use a lot of other stuff. We use process software. Property management is full of complicated processes. If I whiteboarded a process on how to renew a tenant, you guys would be like, that is insane. There are so many steps involved in renewing a tenant because there's so many parties involved. There's so many boxes to check. And so renewals are an incredibly cumbersome process. So, we use a system to manage most of our processes out of. We have, a showing service that we use. We use a company called Tenant Turner, and we can do, agentless showings for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is a game changer in our industry. It's something that we resisted because we're like, wait a minute, we're going to let someone in a property without being escorted. And the answer is yes. And it has been a tremendous benefit to our clients mostly because we can rent homes faster. That whole idea of let's meet with an agent and schedule a time. And it becomes a very, very difficult process, especially at our scale. So, we use that. I would guess our tech stack is 8 to 10 deep in different softwares that we have to use to effectively manage our properties. There's a lot, and we would love to streamline that more. I think there's got to be a consolidation of software to where, not that we can have one software that does it all. We don't pretend that that's even achievable. But there's a lot of tech that we use, portals that owners can log in and see real-time data anytime they want. All those tools, self-service tools that make our jobs easier, make the experience better for a client, that they don't have to say, hey, what's my rent on this property? And if they want to find out at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, they can log in and find out what their rent is for that property, or if they've collected rent or if we collected rent for them that month, or what their maintenance work orders look like. They can see that all in their portals. So those self-servicing tools are critical to adding efficiency into your system.
Yeah. And I want somebody to be able to help you and then also help themselves being able to use those tools. What's the best way to get hold of you guys?
Well, again, threaltyinc.com. That's the easiest way to get to us. You can fill out a form or call us 317-255-7767. Yeah, we're very easy to reach. We've set our systems up to be that way.
Well, why would you do something so easy?
That's right. That's right.
It's one of the things you said early on is you were talking about when you got into it and you took that first property and you were thinking you're going to buy one a year. You ended up buying one a month. As a lender, one of our rules tends to be you can't have too many properties. And
right.
The reason is because we see a lot of people fail
mm-hmm.
when they bring in too many properties at one time, or mm-hmm. Until they get to learn what they're doing. So my thought you guys did an incredible thing by being able to do that, but I'm guessing that it's a lot easier on people if they have a management company like you guys to do that than if they're trying to manage it on their own. Is that accurate? And what would you suggest for somebody who's trying to develop it that fast?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting point, Rick, because I remember vividly, running into those limits, the Fannie and Freddie limits that said, okay, today you can have 10 mortgages in your name. Well, now it's 7. Now it's 15. Now it's 12. It was literally like every home we went to buy, we were over the cap, or all of a sudden we had a lot more we could buy. And it was an interesting conversation. You have to look at your debt to income, right? Because we had jobs, we were working, but we weren't like big time earners back then at all. We were just average guys, looking to invest and try to build long-term wealth creation. So yeah, it was a challenge. Now, since then, we spun them all off into commercial loans. We're in portfolio loans, which, if we have a great relationship with a bank, so if they want to buy 100 properties or 200 properties with them, they can do that if they want to do it. But yeah, it was always a challenge back then to understand, because, I'll just say our perfect product back then was 10% down. And then our interest rate was around 7 to 8%, kind of like today. Not a whole lot different than today. We were doing a ton of loans at 7 and 8%. But we'd put them in our names. We'd buy them under, my name and Scott's name. And then again, ultimately we spun that up as we got more and more and more. And we developed better and better relationships with banks, then they would just take those on. So they would do a loan on 10 doubles that we owned, for example, right? And that makes it really simple. It's one big payment and they service it. And, and if we wanted to sell one here and there, they would work with us and piece it out. They're not that difficult if you got a flexible lender. But, today, yeah, it's a different world today than it was a year ago or 2 years ago for investors. They're getting squeezed in a lot of different areas. Interest rates are higher. The cost of labor is higher. Property taxes are going up. We know that because assessments are going up. The township's not going to sit there and like they used to be. They weren't very good at all in keeping up with assessed values. Now they're pretty good. You're not going to get away with a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of squeeze there for investors, and they just have to be creative with their financing and work for the best rate possible and realize that they're not necessarily married to that rate. They can probably do better down the road, but I don't know what you guys think. You guys have to have an opinion about, and I'm curious what you think. I don't want to hijack your podcast here, but I'm curious what you guys think rates are going to be. Like, where will your clients be able to buy a home next year at this time? What are do you have general thoughts on that?
Yeah, both of us spend a lot of time watching the market. So we watch the mortgage-backed security bond market. We use a company called MBS Highways, Barry Habib, and listen to what they have to tell us and analyze those numbers. And it's not done what anybody's thought it would do. We thought in May we would see the market improve and rates start to come down. That hasn't happened.
Right.
But when you look at inflation and you look at, all the news and you really dig into the employment reports, there's a lot more weakness than the government is letting on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe, and it's nobody has a crystal ball, right? But I do believe rates will be down probably in the low 6s, mid 5s in a year. Okay. But I tell my clients, listen, don't depend on that. You got to do it based on the rate you're getting today. If they happen to go down, then we refinance it. If they don't go down and they go up, then you did a great job. You got the lowest rate before they went up, right?
That's right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I hear too. I think, next year we're going to start seeing some easing and make that better. But yeah, I think it's just a fascinating time to be in the market, frankly. I think, we were just talking the other day as a group, there's a lot of reasons for investors not to invest today. But there were a lot of reasons investors could come up with that they shouldn't invest a year or two ago. Even back when interest rates, they could get a 5% interest rate as an investor, because back then it was like, well, their competition's too great. Like everybody's buying. I have to compete with owner occupants. I have to compete with corporate REITs and fund money, and so I'm just going to wait until the market gets a little slower. Well, now the market is slower. There's fewer homes going on the market, fewer transactions happening. More reductions happening, days on market are going up. And now they're saying, well, the interest rates are too high. So it's like, when do you do it? And I'll say this, I think this is true. I think I've said it 1,000 times, and I think I've am proof of it. I think it's I'm talking about from an investment standpoint, if you're buying this as an investment property, I think it's nearly impossible to make a mistake in real estate if you hold the property long term. Right?
I agree.
There are so many properties that Scott and I bought at sheriff sale, and the sheriff sale was almost exclusively to buy and sell. We were flipping those homes. So we went to sheriff sale. These are inventory for us. They're short term, 30, 60, 90 days, sell them. Well, when we bought 40, 50 a year for a few years, that we made some mistakes, or we thought they were mistakes back then. So we put them in our rental fleet. Well, now I look at them, I'm like, wow, that property at 50th and Roslyn that we way overpaid for at $60,000 is now worth many multiples of that. Okay.
Yes.
And in the meantime, I've cash flowed it. I've gotten good rents. We've maintained it. And so it's been a really, I will say this, I think the biggest mistakes you can buy in real estate from an investing standpoint are the properties that you sell too early, because I know a ton of those properties, I drive by them sometimes and go, wow, we used to own that. I sure wish we still did. Or the properties you didn't buy that you're like, I could buy it if I put another, if I probably go 1,000 more, I could have bought that property. And now you think, wow, I could have bought that property for this. And I heard someone interesting that we sent a bunch of people to a Bigger Pockets conference that happened in Orlando a couple of weeks ago. It's 2,500 investors. Bigger Pockets is an amazing organization. But the keynote speaker said, in 2026, you'll regret that you didn't buy more in 2023. Right. And I think that's the mentality. It's like, don't wait. You can fill yourselves up with a ton of excuses on why not to buy. But ultimately, I think if you hold it long term, if you have that long term wealth building mentality, it's hard to make a mistake. If you have to spend an extra $1,000 in the whole scheme of things, that is literally nothing. It will make very little impact on your overall return and your equity build. So, yeah, I think it's always a great time to buy. It's just, you just got to understand that you're not going to have that perfect market of no competition, very low interest rates, depressed prices. Those don't happen. You're not going to get those types of markets. So you might as well just go in, do it, and I think you'll be happy you did in the end.
So let me ask this: are there like hot spots for rental places here in Indianapolis area?
Yeah, I mean, Indianapolis is getting less and less affordable as a market. 10 years ago when we had, an incredible influx of corporate money coming in, they were buying up these neighborhoods. You guys have seen the stories, probably know the names. They came in hard and heavy and started buying up suburbs mostly. But yeah, there's still some pockets out there. I think there's some, specific areas near downtown that are prime. 5-10 years ago, Fountain Square was a place a lot of people wouldn't go to. They were just, it wasn't like, I don't want to take that gamble. The construction's not the best. They're old, they're whatever. And now, those people who invested heavily in Fountain Square are very, very happy they did. So there still are some pockets, around town that you can do well. We've went a little further outside. We find that, and I never would have thought this ever until about 4 or 5 years ago, Anderson, Indiana is a good place to invest. Prices are still good. Rents are strong. The rental market, there's a tremendous base of tenants up there. And we took on one as a favor to another portfolio. This guy had a portfolio here locally, owned one in Anderson. We happen to have several employees that live in the Anderson area, strangely enough. So we're like, you know what? We'll do him a favor. We'll take it on at least in like 2 days, good rents. And so we started making more concerted effort to go up there and make some stuff happen for some of our clients. It's been really good for us. But there's still value out there. There's still opportunities out there. You just got to be, get a good agent that is really well versed in our industry. I always tell people, just don't Google top agents in Indianapolis and expect that they're going to be the person that you find to get you the best investment deal. Most agents aren't in that mindset. They have a very different mission for their clients. Their clients are motivated differently than an investor would be. So they're not necessarily night and day, because we get it's an adjacent type of thing they're doing, but it is important that people find really good agents that can speak. Like you guys have had a couple on. You guys had Zach Knoll on. He's a great investor agent. Peter Stewart's remarkable agent for investors. Devin Hicks at our company, I'll plug her. She's remarkable as well. But these people deal with a lot of investors, and they have that mindset. And it's so important to employ that agent that has that mindset. And there's a lot of agents that have gotten educated in it. It's not a unattainable skills. It's not some crazy skill set you have to have, but you do have to have some fundamentals and be able to speak the language, know what to look for. That can't happen overnight, but you can certainly get there. Everyone starts, fresh. Devin was a fresh agent, and she's been doing it for a few years now, and she's super effective. 3 or 4 years ago, she walked in, she had no idea what she was doing. But now she's a very different person, and she can really, really sniff them out. And but again, it's a lot of windshield time. It's a lot of videos to our clients. It's just, there's a lot of work involved in sniffing out those investment properties.
Yeah. So we got a couple more questions before we let you go and start earning some more money. So, but we'll do the question of the week. So what was your first car?
Ooh, my first car was a Ford Escort. Okay, my dad knew a guy that owned a body shop, and we bought it wrecked. I think it was $400. We bought it wrecked, and then he fixed it up, and it was a little blue Ford Escort. I don't remember the year. What year would that have been? 88, maybe? I don't know. It was somewhere, maybe 84. I don't know what it was, but it was a little blue manual transmission, little Ford Escort. So I was
Did you take it to IU?
I don't think that car made it to IU. I think in the wreck, it caused some engine damage that was undiagnosed. I think that thing didn't last very long. So what did I drive to? I don't remember what I was driving at IU, but it wasn't great. Whatever car I had, it wasn't a great car. It was I came from a very modest background, and we were farmers and didn't have a lot of disposable income to spend on cars. So we just, I did learn to drive, funny enough, in a hayfield when I was probably about 12. I was driving trucks in hayfields and things like that. And I learned on a manual old Ford pickup, probably is what it was. So I was driving, really early, illegally, in a hayfield, tractors and all that kind of stuff. So driving was never a problem for me. I was kind of driver's ed was as smooth as possibly could be because I already had like 4 years of driving under my belt by then.
Yeah.
All right. So
I just love cars. Go ahead, Ian.
All right. What do you think one of your most memorable transactions have been?
Oh boy. One that sticks out is a sheriff sale purchase. And I'm not sure how much you guys are familiar with the sheriff sale. They used to be huge back in 2008, 2009. Those lists would go up to 1,000 homes that were auctioned off every month in Marion County. I think today there's like 40, right? Because there's, I think that could change. I think the sheriff sale could become bigger and bigger and bigger. We'll see. But we bought a house at sheriff sale in a really, really good area and knew we'd hit a home run. Like it was an obvious home run. We toured it after the fact. And it's, again, we did not get into a lot of these homes. We toured it after the fact, and the assessor's record showed it was on a slab. Turned out it was on a full finished basement. So that home run became magnified even more. And we were talking to our realtor, and he said, hey, look, this thing is worth X. I don't remember what that X was and what we paid for, but there's a massive spread. And literally, as I was leaving the house, the tour, I got a call from the sheriff's department saying the attorney's contesting the sale. They're trying to set it aside. And that means basically that the sale should be deemed null and void, and they would put it back in the system and it would sell again. So you can imagine our euphoria and all of a sudden just deflation. It was like, we thought we hit literally the biggest property we'd ever hit. And then we get the phone call saying, maybe not. So we lawyered up. We got an attorney. The sheriff's department came in and testified on our behalf that it was a valid sale. It was competitive bidding, which we were bidding against somebody else. So it wasn't like, we came in and just bought it, no competition. So theoretically, we paid a fair market value for it because there was competitive bidding and we were just the last one standing. And after a lot of consternation and stuff, we won it. And so we got the house, and I think within a few days had it sold. And, and it was a big moment for us in our flipping history. But there's just been a lot of fun stories, some not so fun. We bought foreclosures. We don't anymore. We haven't been able to buy a home at the sheriff's sale in many years because the competition is just incredibly difficult. They're paying full retail down there for homes. Just another avenue for corporations and investors just to buy homes. They're not looking for value more. They're looking to buy it and rent it. And that's a very different mentality than we had, where we were trying, we had to buy it with margin in it because it didn't make sense. We weren't, again, buying them for rentals. But yeah, just been a lot of fun experiences. I think we flipped 200 or 300 homes back in the day. And so did a ton of transactions. But yeah, had a lot of fun doing that. That was a fun, auctions are fun. They're just fun to be a part of. They're fun to win homes. Like I said, we didn't get into a lot of these homes. So you walk into them after you buy them for the first time, and sometimes you're disappointed. Sometimes you're happy. So it was just a lot of fun back then. And, we had a good agent, Brian Sanders. If you haven't had him on your show, you should. He's been around forever, and we used him for a long, long time to help us buy and sell homes. And yeah, just had a lot of fun transactions on that side of the business.
That is awesome. So I'll ask you this one last time. If somebody's wanting to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Just hit us up at threaltyinc.com. You can Google our name, T&H Realty will come up. You can call us 317-255-7767. Fill out a form. We'll send you a bunch of information about us. Just, one of our core values here is to continually educate and advise. And this is an industry that, people think, well, I can be a landlord because I own this home and I can rent it. And it's really important that they're educated. That's one of the things that we spend the most time on is just education. And it's important that you get very educated about what you're getting into, understanding you're getting into a small business. Again, whether you like it or not, that's what you're entering into. It's not and we've had people come to us who have said, well, I expected $400 a month every month. So I expected $400 to $800 a year in positive cash flow. I got $4,000. You guys aren't doing your jobs. I need to change management companies. And it's like, well, that is not going to be anyone's reality almost ever. There's going to be maintenance on the property. Right. It's just a reality of what we do. And then to compound that in today's market, that maintenance is so much more expensive than maybe they experienced 2 or 3 years ago. I told a story recently. When we first moved downtown, we've been there almost exactly 5 years. And one of the things we talked about doing when we first moved down there is building a carriage house. There's a ton of carriage houses downtown. We thought it'd be a nice thing to do. We were quoted about $100,000 to $110,000, I think, to build a carriage house back then. We decided not to for whatever reason. Recently, we said, hey, let's do a carriage house. We think that might make sense, be a good place for people to come, our kids to come home to, so they can have their own space, whatever. That same carriage house is now quoted out at $310,000. So, and that's the conversation I started it with. They're like, hey, look, you're going to get sticker shock here. And I was sticker shocked a little bit. I thought twice would make sense, but it was 3 times. And that's just kind of where we are as an economy, is that, to replace an HVAC system now is multiple thousands of dollars. Used to be getting for $800 to $1,200. It's just not that same way anymore. And people will get sticker shock when they go in and they have to do a full turn on a property. It's like, wow, these turns used to cost me $2,500, to do this type of work. It's not the way anymore. It's an expensive thing. So we have to educate them, right? We don't want them to be surprised. We feel like if someone's really surprised by something, we haven't done our jobs. So we need to make sure that goes into this with their eyes wide open on what to expect. It's that classic case of, Ian, you want to turn your property, your house you're living into a rental home, and you say, hey, look, this one stove control doesn't work the best. I use a wrench to turn it on. Well, that's going to have to be fixed because tenants are, the way you live in your house isn't necessarily how we should expect a resident to live in your house. They're going to be they want it to be everything working well. if you provide appliances, they all work and they're maintained. So it's just a different mentality. It's like, well, I lived with that pink wall for 10 years. Well, the resident probably won't want to live with your pink wall anymore. So it's getting into that mindset of preparing your product, the house, to be set up to be appealing, especially in this market. The rental market's extremely slow right now. It's very slow. So you got to be priced right. You got to have your house shine. So people will be enticed to move to you because, frankly, they have a lot of options. There's a lot of options right now if you're a tenant to move.
Well, you're an educator at heart, so it doesn't surprise me you want to educate. Yeah. But if you want to get a hold of Ian or I, go to hardworkingmortgageguys.com. That's hardworkingmortgageguys.com. Or you can give us a call at 317-672-1938. That's 317-672-1938. And please follow us for more Indy's Real Estate Gurus.
And a reminder, if you have any friends, family, coworkers looking to buy, sell, refinance, let us know. We're more happy to help you. Jeremy, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you on. I love all the stories you got to share with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been a good conversation. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Branch NMLS number 33041. Rick Ritten's NMLS number 664589. Ian Arnold's NMLS number 2995469. Equal housing opportunity. Some restrictions apply.